This workshop was created because people like you, doers that want to get more done, asked for it. So make sure you stay tuned for that.
So, how are we going to approach this thing today? Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, we're going to kind of talk about the different ideas, give you some inspiration how to update those cabinets and kind of the planning and the preparation involved that you'll need to do. Next, we're kind of discuss some of the easy techniques that incorporate painting. There's techniques and there's processes. There's a difference based on product. We're going to highlight some of those for you as well. Then we're going to kind of discuss cabinet doors and all the hardware that goes with them. This guy is going to lead you through that. And then after that, we're going to discuss some updating options like organization. Everybody likes to be organized. Hey, you want to be able to pull things out, you want to know where they are. My dad always said everything has its place and everything needs to be in its place.
Absolutely.
Trust
Mm.
me on that. And then last but not least, we are going to light it up with some under cabinet lighting. Now, all of these topics will show you how to update your existing cabinets without replacing them. So,
Right.
why don't you kind of start us off through the planning process?
So you will hear us always talk about this at Homeowner 101. Planning is important. Planning, planning, planning. Okay. You have to have planning, you have to have patience, and a little bit of practice. Your cabinets are a great place to really refresh the look and decor of your kitchen or bathroom, right? This is going to actually apply there as well. So, this workshop is going to provide you some what you need to know, what you need to consider before you dive into anything. I can't tell how many times, Ron, we've seen people jump into something, they haven't planned, they haven't practiced, and they have no patience. And then they wind up making a big mess. So we've got a lot of step-by-step directions, a lot of DIY workshop information and online resources to help you as well. So, Ron, what is involved with a cabinet reface?
Well, I got to tell you something. That is one of the things that most people get confused about. So when you think of your cabinets, they're dated or worn looking type cabinets. That's usually a common reason for a remodel,
Okay.
right? However, you could skip that step completely or a full remodel just by changing the appearance. And this is what we like to call in the business or industry a reface. Cabinet refacing involves cosmetic changes, Joe. This includes repainting or staining those cabinets,
Mhm.
changing out the hardware, the handles, and the pulls. And this also might be replacing those drawers,
Mhm.
fronts, or those cabinet doors. Now, if the main body
Mhm.
of your cabinets and the layout of your cabinets are good to go for you, they stay the same. It's usually a whole lot quicker and a way more cost effective than completely remodeling and replacing these existed cabinets. How about you walk us through, Joe, the difference between that replace and reface just to kind of clean it up for us?
Yeah, so there's the biggest difference between replace versus reface. First off, we're talking about if you're refacing, if the cabinets are good shape and functional, and the changes you need are more about appearance, choose refacing. Now, replacing, if your cabinets have any major structural damages, or you want them in different places, maybe you need bigger cabinets, then replacement is the better option. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you, you want to replace when the main body and the shelves are poorly constructed or just in bad condition. Maybe they're sagging. You've got some bowed
Right.
areas in there, right? Because they can't support any new cabinet door installation. Maybe you need more shelving that you currently have, and storage accessories or a different cabinet layout are really what you want, right? And then maybe you need something that's made too expensive for just like stock cabinets. Maybe you need something a little bit custom. Those typically, when you're talking about replacement, that is not a DIY. That is not something we encourage you to do. You hire a professional to do that, and we do have different ways you can actually have a free home in consultation. You can find that out in the resources. Now, Ron, how should I approach things like trends or styles?
So it's funny that you say that because my wife always says, believe it or not, I'm the paint color person and I'm the style person in our family. It's kind of weird. But the best way to approach a cabinet remodel or slash reface is how do you decide the best style and the theme for your needs?
Okay.
Everybody's got those flavors, whether you're choosing a color, hardware, or even a new door design. Your decor in your home will dictate those things.
Yes, yes.
Now, if you don't know, I don't want you to freak out about it because we happen to have what we call a style quiz on HomeDepot.com. But to kind of get you started, let's talk about some of those popular styles that are currently out there. Take a look at timeless gatherings, classic traditional with emphasis on some vintage. Like you, Joe, you're pretty vintage.
I'm vintage, yes.
That's right. And then we like natural simplicity. Took me a while to practice that word, but I got it right. It's modern, it's minimal, it embraces some warmth. And then what I like to think when I leave this job at the end of the day,
Oh, okay.
my casual escape. That's right,
Yes, one of my
casual
favorites.
style that embraces comfort and just kind of helps you celebrate imperfect mixing pieces to find your own personalized style. Now, we have a great online video for popular decor styles and accessories to enhance your own personal style. The links are in the resource guide, or just like Joe talked about before, which you can download at the end of this course.
Yeah.
So, kind of got all that stuff out of the way. Kind of want to understand how, the cabinet doors and how panel designs can help us enhance our overall layout.
Yeah, it's really important to understand this. First off, let's talk about what's called a cabinet door overlay. Now, you're going to hear me reference this a lot today. An overlay basically is how the doors, well, they lay on the cabinet face. Now, you actually have to have a face frame cabinet for this to happen. And we'll talk more about that in just a second, but they're basically two overlay styles. Now, standard overlays, also called traditional overlays, they basically create a frame. It's almost like a picture frame around the face of the cabinet box. Uh, Full overlays mount the cabinet doors to cover the cabinet box. So you don't see any cabinet frame around the door or drawer fronts. And that's typically the difference between maybe, say, a European style, very modern, like you talked about, or maybe something like a craftsman style. So you'll see this in action in just a few moments. Now, door panel design. Yeah, Ron, you've got some doors over here. So among the most popular door panel designs are recessed panels, raised panels, shaker, slab, and headboard. So you can see right here, this is, you can see that panel inside. This is very, very traditional. Recessed cabinet doors have a flat center panel surrounded by a slightly higher rim. They include beadboard cabinet doors. This type, you can have that raised center panel. Um, You've got shaker cabinet doors. They're a type of recessed door with a simple, uncarved rim, right? Shaker style. This is kind of actually what you'll see.
Super popular.
Yeah, you'll see this in my kitchen that we'll show a video for in just a little bit. And then finally, there's slab. They have a flat panel door. They have no rim or no overlay. So first, kind of decide on what type of cabinet frame you have, what kind of door panel design that you have, because really cool things, anytime that you have like a shaker style or anything like that, you've got these panels right here. Sometimes you can actually remove these panels and actually have a glass insert. Now, we're not going to cover that today because that's a little bit more in depth. We will just want to make sure that you're able to kind of reface those cabinets, get them up to speed. Now, that's frames, that's door tights. Everybody wants to know this, Ron. How how do I paint these things?
I'll tell you what, before we get into painting cabinets, just understand there's going to be a process for it. Now, the process and the steps involved are going to be dictated by products used. So, I'm going to give you the full blown out version of what you need to do when you're using a regular cabinet grade paint. And then in my video, I'm going to show you how to use a product that's just a two-step process, saving you some time,
Love it.
saving you some money along the way. Now, painting cabinets can definitely add some color and some freshness to your kitchen for sure. But with the right primer, super important. I can't emphasize it enough. Primer is key. Any kind of paint can work with any cabinet material because it's all about the bond, right? So we also want to think about whether you got hardwood cabinets and you want to keep that natural wood grain.
Yes.
You could try an interior wood stain. Wood stains comes in natural tones. You could also get stains in grays and even whites, and you could even do a weathered look as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Joe, before we kind of get into those step-by-step processes on how to paint cabinets, would you do us a favor and kind of walk us through some of the tools that might be necessary?
Yeah. Paintbrush. There you go. And there's other a few things too. So let's talk a little bit about paintbrushes. Ron, you've got some over here. Now, Ron taught me a great, great tip. I'll actually let him show you this a little bit later on. But if you've, especially if you've got a face frame cabinet, I highly recommend using these brushes. These, and yes, they're
Joys.
Yes, exactly. Sorry,
it's
yes.
I love using these because it helps you paint the frame. Yes, you're gonna paint the doors, but you gotta paint the face frame as well. So, I love using this. Paint brushes are great. Foam paint brushes, we'll actually see Ron using this later on. Makes a great way to apply the paint again and make sure that you follow the steps, put the primer on right. Of course, you want a paint roller, paint tray, primer,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
paint stirs, a few other things you talk about you don't necessarily always hear people mention, but you want to make sure that you have some protective gear like gloves, masks, and goggles because there's going to, if you're using a paint sprayer, which is another way to paint these, you're going to want to make sure you have some protective gear, okay? Because there's a lot of different types of chemicals involved in these paints. You want to make sure you're very well protected. Now, Ron, I think that's primarily the tools there. We do also have these listed in our resource guide as for you, but what's first when it comes to painting? I got all my stuff. What's first?
All right. So the very first thing you're going to want to do, and like I said, I'm going to recap some of the stuff in the video. So you're probably going to hear it more than once. But my dad always said repetition is the key to success. But the first thing we want to do before we paint is we have to remove all the doors and the hardware, and then we have to clean everything. So the first thing you're going to do is remove all that existing hardware from the doors and from the drawer fronts. Now, if you plan on reusing this hardware, I highly recommend you put the hardware by door in a plastic bag or a plastic cup and you actually number it. Now, that number is going to correspond with the layout of your kitchen. So, you're going to kind of map out your kitchen, and that way you know exactly where that hardware went, to what door it went to, and what box it's attached to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's super important to remember that because there is nothing worse than taking things apart and not either taking pictures or marking stuff. And then when it comes time to put it back together, you're kind of lost a little bit. So you don't want to do that for sure. Now, after you get that all taped up and you've marked everything good, you want to use a high quality degreaser. Now, I've got a couple of different degreasers here.
Mhm.
This is a heavy duty citrus based degreaser, which is completely safe. It's going to get rid of all the different kinds of crud and the different kinds of stuff, grease that you're going to have in that kitchen. I also have something called crud cutter.
So it gets rid of crud, apparently.
That's right. So it's a degreaser. Once again, you're going to want to clean them. Clean the cabinets thoroughly. And when you think they're clean, clean them again.
Yeah.
Wipe them down according to the manufacturer's instructions. Now, when doing this, it's always smart to wear gloves and safety glasses. And just a simple tip,
Mhm.
these, my friends, are not safety glasses.
They are not.
I like to think of them safety glasses sometimes, but they are not. Also, be sure to cover appliances and flooring with plastic sheets or drop cloths when you're in what I like to call the cleaning mode.
Yes.
Now, the next thing is we got to kind of start to prep the surface. We clean it really well. And depending on what product we're going to use, really key, you might have to sand or degloss, and then prime the surface. I'm going to kind of go over some of this stuff, but the product that I'm going to show you in a little bit, there is no sanding required, no deglossing required. So you've already spun up the process just a little bit. Now, with your doors and your drawers, if you're going to degloss and sand them, you kind of want to lay them down on a surface and probably put like a 2x4 under them to pick them up like you see on the slide itself. It's going to help elevate it so that you can get at the whole door. If you're going to sand, be very careful with the sander. If you're going to use an orbital sander, make sure that you're not pressing down on the sander because you do not want to kind of impact the overall profile of your door. That's why I encourage people to sand with just a regular sanding block or sanding sponge because you can't really take a whole lot off. And you're going to want to use a high grit depending on how much you want to take off. Rough the surface up just enough so the primer can bond to it. Once again, primer is going to be key. Primer is going to be key. It's important.
Yeah.
Different primers bond to different surfaces differently.
Mhm.
The better the primer, the less work that you have to do to get the bond that you need. in the cabinet. Now, after you have done all those different things, here's a really good pro tip for you. You're going to like this. You're taking the time to clean them.
Yes.
You're taking the time to prep them,
Yes.
right? But how do you get all that excess dust and stuff that you put back on it when you sanded them?
I just blow it off.
Well, some people would just take a blower.
Yeah.
They might even just take maybe a microfiber cloth and wipe them down.
Mhm.
But if you really want to get everything off there so that you have a nice smooth surface for your paint to get adhered to, you're going to use a tack cloth. Tack cloths, ladies and gentlemen, are designed for prepping for furniture, right? So it's going to get all that stuff off there and have a super good surface in order for you to get it going. Now, after that, you're going to tape off the boxes,
Right.
you don't want to have paint and primer and all these different things all on the inside of your boxes, your skeleton of your box. You kind of want to do that now. Like I said before, after all this is done, it's time to prime. Primer is key. Depending on what you're using, like if you're going to use, if you're trying to paint over, say, a melamine
Okay.
or a laminate
Mhm.
or something like that, or a metal cabinet, you want to get what we call a shellac-based primer. This is critical because this will bond really well to those smooth surfaces that don't necessarily have pores in order to grab, right? So you want to use this. Now, you have just wood and you really, really, really want to make it look good. Here's a pro tip for you.
All right. Pro tip.
Automotive primer.
But isn't that for cars?
Sure, but cars are made out of metal, right? You get a nice smooth surface, right? You could actually use automotive primer with what they call a filler. And what the filler is going to do
Like this.
is going to fill in all the cracks and crevices so you don't have any bleed through from any knots or anything that's
Okay.
existing. So just a tip for you. And then, of course, after that's all done, it's time for that first coat of primer. After you put it on, you're going to lightly sand with a high grit sandpaper or sanding block, wipe clean with a tack cloth, and add a second coat if needed.
Okay.
Now, that's a lot of steps. That's a lot of steps. So what we're saying here is, if there were a product that would take away some of that, and you would still have a cabinet in the end that you would find beautiful and enjoy, would you take the easier route, you think?
Well, I'm lazy, so the answer is yes.
Okay. So now we're ready to paint. Now, when the primer is fully dry, you're going to apply that first coat of paint. I'm going to show, got to be patient, patient, patient. You're not going to rush this. You've got to be patient and have what we call light coats.
Okay.
Heavy bad.
Okay.
Heavy bad. Heavy coats make runs, right?
Yeah.
It's longer for them to dry. So if you go to apply second coat, it might not stick properly and you might get little thick spots that get kind of gooey and you get what we call ookies.
Cookies. Yes.
We
do.
don't want,
To get an ookie, you have to sand it down, start all over.
right,
It's a key. We
yeah.
don't like cookies.
So we don't want ookies. So you're going to lightly sand with a very fine sandpaper between coats to minimize those small imperfections. Because after all, this is a cabinet door, a cabinet drawer front. You want it to look awesome, right? Now, when choosing a cabinet paint, I want you to look for a couple of different things. Number one, if it's a high use area, right? There are different types of paint to choose from, but best type of paint for kitchens are going to be a semi-gloss or a gloss or a satin, right? Matte is not necessarily practical in kitchens and baths where you'll need a durable paint that's easy to clean. However, here's the exception. You can use a matte-based paint if you're going to add a bonding coat. Or not a bonding coat, but a protective top coat,
Gotcha.
like a polyurethane. Because the polyurethane is going to cover down on that protection and that easy to clean, where you can still have your matte kind of finish that you're looking for.
So, and if I understand correctly, if you use anything like a stain, you'd probably want to use a polyurethane coat on top of that thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because you want to protect it, right? It's a kitchen. There's going to be moisture, some heat. People are going to spill that spaghetti sauce. You just want to wipe that right off, right?
Yes.
And that's where that clear protective coat comes into play. Now, if you are repainting laminate, like I said before, or a melamine,
Okay.
Am I even saying melamine? It's melamine, right? I think so. Melamine, melamine. You guys understand? Melamine is that typical in between the press board.
Mhm.
It's common in
Yeah, very, very, very common builder's grade cabinets. Yeah, absolutely.
so you've got to get the actual paint that will adhere to that. Now, that's why primer is key once again. So if you are dealing with a melamine or you're dealing with a laminate or something like those or thermofoil cabinets,
Yeah.
which they're kind of made that way, pressed, you're going to want that proper primer. I showed you a shellac-based primer, but once again, I'm going to show you in the video a product that is going to be able to bond to all those surfaces and have color with no primer.
Okay.
Pretty sweet. Now, Joe, it seems like an awful lot that we've already covered,
Yes.
right? It is, but depending on the product that we use, we can reduce those steps needed.
All for it.
I think it's time
Yeah.
to play that video.
Yeah. Let's take a look.
All right, everybody. So now we're going to go ahead and update those cabinets. We kind of walked you through the painting process, but now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do it. But I've chosen an awesome product and to save you some time. It's called Rust-Oleum Transformations. Now, this product's been around for a while. This is a new formula. The beautiful thing about this formula is it's a simple two-step process. Why is it awesome? Because this stuff is going to bond to laminate. It's going to bond to melamine. It's going to bond to metal. And of course, it will bond to traditional wood as well. Give you an example. We went from this to this. Smooth, real nice. So that's what we're going to do. So if you follow me over to the kitchen, we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so here we are in my kitchen. It needs a little help, as you can see. Simple kitchen sink. The base cabinet here, we're going to go ahead and start off by removing all that hardware, all those hinges and different things like that. And we're going to have to label them and put them in an appropriate, say, a bag or a plastic cup, so that way you know what goes where. So that's the first thing we're going to do is remove the pull, right? Use a drill, use a screwdriver, whatever you guys want in order to get those off. I'm going to put it in my little Ziploc bag. And then I'm going to do the same thing with all the doors. I'm going to do the same thing with all the hinges. And then I'm going to go ahead and label the doors, where the doors are located, and everything in conjunction with the cabinet itself. So when we come back, everything will be stripped off and we will be ready to go ahead and tape everything and prep everything so that we can clean it and then paint it. All right, everybody, welcome back. As you can see, the skeleton box of our cabinet is completely taped up and ready for the next step. A couple things I want to show you though. Remember earlier I said how important it was to label everything? You notice how I have it labeled, put in a little Ziploc? You don't have to use a Ziploc bag. Use a plastic cup, whatever. Bottom line is you want to make sure that you separate the hardware by the location. Speaking of location, remember the door, right? This is door number one. It's going to get put back on this side. I know it's going to get put back on that side because I've marked number one location inside that box. I've also taped off the box, protected it, and everything else. One last thing before we move into the next little phase. This is a drawer front. It's actually removable. You can see the plastic pieces. It just clips in place there. The ones underneath your sink are probably going to be like that. They can be removed. They're called like false drawer fronts, right? Or false drawers. You're just going to pull those off. In most cases, they're clipped on. Sometimes they might be screwed on, but if they are glued on, don't worry about it. You can always paint them in place. Just wanted to throw that out there to you. So now what we're going to do is we are going to take an actual degreaser that comes in this kit. Remember, it came in the kit. This is called Crud Cutter. It's just a cleaner degreaser. You can get some TSP. Any cleaner degreaser will work. I'm just using what came in that Rust-Oleum kit, which is very helpful if you think about it. So all we're going to do now is we're going to bust it open. We're going to put it directly on the actual door or the cabinet, and we are just going to wipe it in real good. We're just cleaning it up real good. Now they will be ready for that first coat of paint. Now it's time to start painting. This is where the gratification is going to pay off. You're going to see how pretty this is going to look. a couple of key points of reference that I want to go ahead and share with you. Number one, you want to glove up. This stuff is not the most friendliest paint in the world when it comes to actually getting on your skin. So you're always going to want to go ahead and glove up as far as that goes. But I did want to share with you a couple of little things when it comes to the types of rollers. I followed the complete instructions on the pack. They asked me to use a quarter nap roller for smooth surfaces, as you can see right here. So quarter nap for smooth surfaces. You can even use maybe a foam roller for really smooth surfaces. I'm just doing exactly what the instructions say. You can also spray this stuff on. I'm a firm advocate of spraying. But now let's go ahead and start to go ahead and apply. So what we're going to do first, we're going to brush in the corners, right? I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to brush in the corners long strokes. As you can see, it's going to take more than one coat. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in the corners. Once I start to roll it out, you'll see how much better it's going to look. I'm just getting those corners in there real good. First, get that in there really good before I start to roll it. Go ahead and get the roller. We're going to go ahead and do the inside first. And don't worry about what you think is a texture. Because trust me when I tell you, when this dries, it won't dry like that. And I'll show you the finished product. Oh, by the way, I have it sitting up. So whatever you can use to sit it up, get a 2x4, put a couple nails in it, and set it up that way. You get your sides. Or you can get the little stands. They sell them in the paint department. They're real inexpensive, so not a whole lot to really worry about. It's absolutely that simple. When we come back, we're going to put the second coat on and you're going to see how it's going to fill in. The key here is light coats. Light coats, minimum of 2 coats. You can do more if you're not happy with it. But I promise you, when it's all said and done, we put the actual top coat on, it will be smooth as glass. All right, so now that coat has dried and we're ready for our second coat. But there was a couple quick things I wanted to add to what I had already mentioned before. Remember earlier I was talking a little bit about this crud cutter? Well, the importance of the degreaser. Think about this for a second. If you've got some grease or just some smudge or something, by applying this, what you're doing is removing that. If you don't remove it and you paint over it, you're going to get like a bump, and that bump is going to cause the paint to peel or bubble off, and you do not want that. So let's go ahead and get this second coat on. We'll finish this thing up, and then we'll get back to the workshop and be able to show you the finished project. So go ahead, pan down. We'll go ahead and put this second coat on. I'm going to start with the brush, that brush in the corner. Remember, you want to do long strokes in the corners. Kind of difficult sometimes when they're on a shaker type of cabinets. Not too bad off of one coat though. Looks really good. Now keep in mind, the number of coats is completely up to you. It's all about you and how nice you want it to be. But the more coats that you put on, even though it's only required to have 2, the smoother it will actually be. Now we're going to go ahead and roll that out. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is how you would paint the cabinet using, I might add, the Rust-Oleum Cabinet Transformations Kit 2-step process. Just a 2-step process. You're going to love it. You should try it. Keep in mind, not the bond coat, but the protective top coat. You're going to apply it the same way. Long strokes, 2 coats, 2 hours between coats. What this is going to do, it's going to protect that bond coat that you put on or that painted coat that you put on. It's going to make it easy to clean. It's kind of almost like a polyurethane. It's going to give it a nice hard shell to finish, and you're going to be super happy with the product. All right, so let's go ahead and get back to the workshop and let's see what Joe has in store for us.
Run. This looks absolutely amazing. We kind of go from this builder's grade to this beautiful deluxe, almost like a professional did it. And I love this hardware too. Speaking of this, man, what color is this?
I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's Capri Blue. I mean, what a weird name, right? We all know that the blues and the grays and the light and bright is what's in and trending today. So I decided to go ahead and do it for you. Hopefully you can do that too. One cool tip is any type of the paint you get, if you get that Rust-Oleum kit, I think I even said it in the video, they get it in gallons as well. You can actually have the tint put in. It can be any color you want. It doesn't have to be a color that Rust-Oleum actually says, but there are 3 different base types. There's a light tint base, a medium, which is what I used, and then there's a deep. Depending on the color palette you want to go for, you have to make sure you have the right bonding base coat.
Well, it looks absolutely beautiful. Now, what I truly loved about that was how the hardware kind of set it off. That was amazing to me. I just love how that looks, you know? So that's something else you got to think about when it comes to creating these cabinets. You got to think about the hardware. So cabinet pulls, spread handles, knobs, and hinges. Those really will add a lot of personality to those cabinets. We'll talk a little bit more about hinges in just a second, but I want you to think of this. When it comes to cabinet handles, you showed me this. I love this. This is a great new style. This is actually an adjustable handle. And what that means is once you put these into those pre-drilled holes or whatever, see that? You can actually adjust on how high or how low that handle sits. So that is absolutely amazing. So right there, you've got those traditional old small knobs, and this right here just really adds a lot of flair to it.
You want to know what's really cool about this though?
Yes.
So when you're thinking about like making drill holes in your cabinets, kind of freaks people out, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say I'm off and they're not completely level. The fact that the screw follows this rail system back here, it doesn't matter if the hole is off a little bit. But if you're using traditional handles, you're going to need to know exactly what the distance is between the 2 screws. So we have a couple of little templates and little jigs that you can get in order to make that work out for you. So
This is great. I love this.
super cool, right? This is going to go on the door for the long one. It's going to tell you exactly where it is. It has these lips on both surfaces so that you can attach it. So say for instance, like that, and you'll know exactly where it is. You'll put this in a position that you need, and wherever the hole is that you want, it makes sure that you have it in the same place on every door and every drawer. That is huge. And ladies and gentlemen, here's a little pro tip for you. When you're working it, I know there's like lots of holes there. What I like to do is take a little Sharpie and I like to make the hole that I'm using, highlighted in that like a black Sharpie. That way I don't mistakenly screw it through the wrong hole.
Yeah. So this is the great little tip here. Absolutely fantastic way to kind of keep those doors looking phenomenal. Now, we talked about this earlier. When we talk about doors and hardware, the most common hardware people forget about are hinges, okay? So the hinges that you have are really going to depend on the type of door that you have, okay? So maybe you have that faced frame, those frame cabinets we talked about earlier, okay? And if you have a frame cabinet, that means the hinges are going to be attached to the door and the actual frame. Frameless cabinets have hinges attached to the door and the wall because when that door shuts, right, how much overlay is going to be there, and that's key to getting the right hinges. You can have European style hinges or sealed hinges. You don't even see them when the door is closed. You can have traditional or exposed hinges where you would actually see the hinges or the knuckles, if you will, on the side of the door. And you can actually change those out and have them in different finishes too. They can be brushed bronze, they can be stainless, a bunch of different things. You can use spring-loaded and self-closing barrel hinges, knife hinges. You can actually have some type of hinges that are slow close, which is actually what you're going to see in just a few moments. So,
And you know what else? There's actually something called a pivot hinge.
yeah, there are pivot hinges.
Pivot hinges, you can't see them, pretty sweet. You know, when we talk about hinge replacement, here's a tip for you guys. It can get a little complicated.
Oh, it definitely got
You know,
complicated for me.
so here's a suggestion for you. Take your old hinges to your local Home Depot, right? So that you ensure that you choose the right hinge with the same depth and overlay and measurement that you're going to need. Also, please stay away from plastic hinges. They have a tendency to break. Now, Joe,
Yes.
I think it is a great time for us to show them how to replace cabinet hinges.
Look.
I think we should play that video.
So one of the things you want to do when it comes to refinishing your cabinets is you probably want to change out the hinges. Now we'll talk about how to refinish those cabinet doors and drawers in just a few moments. We'll show how easy it is to actually change out some of those hinges. First off, when you're dealing with kitchen cabinets, like here in my kitchen, you got to figure out what type of cabinets you have. There's basically two types. There's what's called a face frame and a frameless. Now, first off, take a look at this cabinet right here. Okay. As I open this door up, you can see this is where we're storing our plates in here, and you can see that there is actual little type of picture frame around the box. You guessed it, this is what's called a face frame cabinet. Now, the reason why this is important to know is because of how these hinges are going to work. Now, if there was no box around here, no picture frame around it, and these hinges, if you could look right on the inside here, these hinges were attached directly to the cabinet wall, then that typically means you have what's called a frameless cabinet. Now, a frameless cabinet is it's more European, it's a little bit more modern, whereas traditional cabinets like this, these face frame cabinets, they're more of, craftsman style, right? So whatever you have, you got to figure that out first. So we're going to look at a framed face frame cabinet install. There's really no difference though, depending on if it's framed or frameless and how you install these hinges. It's just important how you got to figure out the next step. Now, when you have a face frame cabinet, you can see these doors shut and they lay over part of this frame. That's called an overlay. So the type of hinge that you're going to have here, you can see it's invisible from this side. You can see it when we open up the doors, right? But there's an overlay. So you've got to figure out what that overlay is. Overlays typically are anywhere from a half inch to an inch and a half. That means this door will lay over this frame anywhere from a half inch to an inch and a half. Now, if you don't know what that overlay is, typically you could buy the wrong hinge and then your door is not going to fit properly. So how do you figure it out? Well, it's a really easy step. This is the way I do it. People do it a lot of different ways, but this is the easy way for me. First off, you can see I put a piece of blue painter's tape here, right? I've just put that right here, right along the side of the door when it's closed. And then I open up the door and I put one right where that door opens up. Typically, I hold it about 90 degrees and I put it where that door is opened up. That gap right there, that is your overlay. That is the distance that this door lays on top of this frame, and the hinge allows it to do that. So how far is that? Well, take out your trusty tape measure here, and you can see that is a half inch. So what did I do? Well, I went out and bought me some more hinges, and you can see right there, these are the half-inch overlay door hinges for a face frame. Now, these door hinges I have right now, they're not soft close, okay? So let me show you why I bought these. I'm gonna replace a door that actually has damage to it. So let's look down here. This is our sink door. These hinges have gotten a lot of water spilled down it. And as you can see, the door still opens up, but doesn't shut all that well. Look at that. So this actually got some damage to it. So we can get down here and look. I'm going to show you where that damage is. That damage is going to be on this hinge right here. You can kind of see it's rusted and it's not really holding that door in place. So we're going to take this door off and we're going to replace these hinges. Now, when we were doing this, a couple things, especially if you've just, put in new cabinets or you don't want to scratch the door. So first off, you want to make sure that I usually take the bottom screw off first. Make sure we're good here. That screw came right out right there. And you're going to make sure that you have a place for all this hardware. And so now we've removed the door.
as well. Now,
So we're going to take this door downstairs to the workshop, change out these hinges, and see what kind of job I did. All right, so now we're down in my workshop. Now, a couple things to think of before you start working on these doors. Make sure you put some fabric down, something like that. You don't want to scuff or scratch your doors. Now, I know this door is just kind of dirty, so people do a lot of things about cleaning it up afterwards. But let's talk a little bit about some of the things you need to plan for. First off, as you can see right here, I've actually labeled this door. I've put down this the sink door on the right. You can do a few things. You can label these doors 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. But if you're going to do work on these doors more than one, you probably want to label them because not all doors are the same size. The overlay is going to be the same, but not the actual size of the doors. A couple other things to think about when you're doing this. Now's a great time to take off that hardware as well. If you want to change out the hardware, we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Now, I'm getting ready to remove these hinges here. So you can kind of see, again, just using my drill. And I don't have too much torque on this, right? And these hinges pop right out. So you've actually kind of see where we've got a recessed in there as well. So these hinges right here have served me well, but again, they're no longer manufactured. So we're gonna put some soft close hinges on this. Also, any other hardware that you take off, like we've taken off this this handle here and everything. We actually, and those screws, we actually have those in a Ziploc bag upstairs to make sure that we don't lose those. Now, I have gotten these again to replace them. I actually made sure that they were right. They're the same diameter, about 1.5 inches right here. You can see this little mechanism on the inside. This one doesn't have. This allows this door to be a soft close as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to install these hinges. You can see that they fit right down in there perfectly. People do ask me sometimes, they're like, well, should I just replace the one bad hinge? I wouldn't recommend that. I'd recommend replace all the hinges. Now that could be a little bit more expensive than what your budget would allow, but trust me, you're going to like it in the end. And it's a lot better than buying all new doors. So let's go ahead and open this up. These are screws to mount the faceplate. Let me see how well these fit in. Now, as I'm putting this in, a lot of people do ask, well, what are these two different screws for over here? I didn't see that on these. These are great little additions. These are a little bit more modern. This allows us to adjust this hinge either vertically, so the door is completely centered up, or widthwise or horizontally to make sure that the door fits perfect, okay? You may not have to do much adjusting in that whatsoever, especially if you've got pre-drilled holes or you're just replacing like this. It should fit in there just fine. Last thing I'm going to point out on this is this little mechanism right here. This is what allows it to close soft or more firm. Okay. We always talk about this in every homeowner 101. Read your instructions. You do see that I do have some inserts right here. Those actually came with the door. Not every hinge has one of those, but they are great, especially if you're replacing a hinge. I would not recommend removing those. Some hinges do fit a little bit better once you click that in there. And you can see I'm not putting a lot of torque into this. And there's a reason why. We don't want to over torque any of these. There we go. All right, these hinges are secure. So now our next step is we're going to take this door back upstairs. We're going to install these two screws right here, make sure it fits. And if all works great, we'll have us almost a brand new door. Stay tuned. All right, folks, let's see if we can actually get these doors hung now. Okay. So now the hinges are attached. Now, as I told you before, we've got these secondary screws. They refer to them as A and B. And what these allow us to do is to shift the door up or down if need be. But we're going to watch this soft close. And I think we're good.
Great walkthrough on the hinges, Joe. Couldn't be more happier with that video. But hinges isn't all there is.
No.
More hardware, right?
No, yeah, there's a lot more hardware. So one of the things once you painted, there are other pieces of hardware that you need to consider. First off, think about back plates. Now, a back plate is just a flat metal piece, and they're installed between the cabinet and the hardware. So if you actually had holes like this and you want to put something up like that, you could actually put a back plate that would hide maybe any other pre-drilled holes. Maybe you didn't follow Ron's advice and you misdrilled something right there. Put a back plate behind that and make it look perfect, right? Other things that you can do as well. Maybe you don't want to use a back plate, but you do have some holes that you need to fill in. So there's actually the plastic wood filler. Ron gave me a great pro tip about this. When you're putting this into pre-drilled holes, things like that, don't just put enough in there. You literally want it almost like dripping out, and then you can kind of sand it down, almost overflowing. But this is something you want to do prior to painting, right? Um, Catches and latches. So catches help cabinets close tightly. They're typically either have like a magnet or a roller. They snatch the cabinet as it's closing. They hold it in position. Latches. Ron and I used to have some younger kids, right? And so latches are a safety issue that you can install on your drawers and cabinets as well. Once that drawer latches on there, you can't unlock it unless you kind of use your finger to kind of open it, right? And then drawer slides. Drawer slides literally allow those drawers to kind of be pulled out all the way further, as opposed to just having that last third kind of stuck in there. So they allow the drawer to actually come out, almost look like they're levitating right by every character, right? You can slide all the way out, and you can get soft close. And those are really easy to install. You install them pretty much like we did the hinges. Now, Ron, I talked about junk drawers already. I talked about, disorganization. You probably saw some kitchen cabinets in there. Probably could use some organizational skills. Any tips for me in that area?
Well, I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, as far as organizational skills go in my life, maybe not so much.
Okay.
But if you go into my kitchen, I'm pretty squared away.
It is nice.
Because when you think of better organized cabinets, you're going to kind of make your dishes and your utensils a whole lot easier to access. You're going to maximize your storage. It's going to reduce clutter on those countertops. Everybody likes a nice clean countertop, right? With some handy cabinet organizational accessories. A couple different accessories to think about. Pull out shelves. Anytime you open up, right, your cabinets, and you see that one little shelf that's there, you've got all those pots and pans that are up on top of it. Get yourself some pull out shelving, right? It sits on a actual drawer slide. You can get it in lots of different flavors. You can get them in different sizes to customize your cabinets the way you want to. Now, full transparency, this is a bought kit. You can get these at Home Depot, of course, and it comes with everything you need in the instructions to install it. Now, drawer inserts are awesome because here's the thing. We all have that junk drawer at home. When you open it up, it's all over the place. Or we've been to that vacation rental where you open up that drawer and the silverware is everywhere. Get yourself some drawer inserts, some organizers, because you want things to be in their place. There's a variety of options for flatware and knives and etc. There's even something for your garbage, Joe. You open up the door,
Yes.
pull it out. It's got 2 cans. You can get it in 1 can. I happen to have 2 cans now because I'm trying to be green, so that's recycling the best that I possibly can. It's made things a whole lot easier because the cans aren't as big. So what does that mean? That means I'm taking the garbage out more frequently, which is a good thing.
It is a very good thing. Yeah.
So there's other things out there. There are lazy Susans, things for the corner, things just to make things a whole lot more organized, right? Like I said earlier, everything has its place and everything needs to be in its place. Now, we've talked a little bit about cabinets and organization.
Yes.
There's some things that we can help make our cabinets shine. Joe, can you just shed a little light on that for us?
I would love to. So, folks, I think that cabinet lighting, under cabinet lighting, is phenomenal. First off, aesthetically, it's beautiful. It really enhances any type of kitchen, right? And also, it's helpful because you've got different tasks that you're willing to do. It illuminates the counter below it. Now, there's a lot of people out there, myself included. Like, I don't know anything about electronics. I don't know anything about hardwiring. I don't want to drill. I don't want to wire. I don't even have an outlet. How can I do under cabinet lighting? This is great. Folks, this right here, this is actually called the puck system, right? These are little tiny pucks and they're installed underneath the cabinet. Now, there's two different ways you can install it. You can actually screw them directly into the base of your cabinets, the bottom of your cabinets, right? And you see these little lights clip on just like that.
Gotta line them up.
I know. I'm not wearing my glasses, Ron. So, so, so they clip on just like that. Or you can actually use the adhesive strip that came with them as well to install them. The other great thing is when you install these under the cabinet, if you have a face frame cabinet, you've got a little lip right here. So you want to actually see these lights. You want to actually see them at all. The other thing is, look, there are no wires, Ron, no wires whatsoever. And now we are on with a remote control. These are battery powered, folks. Also, guess what? You can change colors on these. There's red, there's blue, there's green. And then you may be thinking to yourself, well, I don't want to just sit there with a little tiny remote to control these. There's actually a timer on the remote. So you can turn them on, let them change colors whenever you want to, and then have them shut off whenever you're ready.
You know what's really cool about the color changing things? Not people are like, why do I want color changes? Well, if you got kids, there's seasons involved.
Oh, yeah.
You can change the colors with the seasons. Your kids are gonna get a kick out of it. It could even be a kind of an icebreaker or a talking point.
Yeah.
When you have or well, not customers, but when you have I don't know. Hey, go come on, let's go over to Ron's house.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So, Ron, we talked about some of the things that you can do to kind of improve your kitchen cabinet. We talked about the hardware. We talked about lighting. But I know one of the things that you and I discuss a lot about. What about specific tools? Like, what if I want to get a paint sprayer? Is that something that I need to go out and purchase to have to do this one job?
So that's a valid question. Here's the thing. If you're not using tools on a regular basis, is it worth really investing in them? Well, at Home Depot, you don't have to actually buy the paint sprayer. Don't get me wrong. We would love to sell you the paint sprayer, but at the end of the day, Home Depot rental has everything that you need in order to get the job right, no matter what scale the project is. Whether you're a contractor looking to actually do an entire home, whether you're that homeowner like us just wanting to update those cabinets, we've got everything you need from drills to compressors to nailers to saws
Oh
to
my.
even paint
Mhm.
sprayers and sanders.
Yeah.
So if it's a one-time use for you and you don't think you're going to be using it again and again, you got to weigh buying the tool versus renting the tool and their advantages. The advantage of renting that tool, number one, and mostly is you don't have to store it, you don't have to maintain it. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're done, you just bring it back. We'll take care of everything. There's no upkeep, there's no storage necessary, and you're going to get a professional quality tool
Mhm.
to get the job done right. Now, I'm a little sad.
I know.
Yep, I'm going to tear up in just a second because, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the end of our workshop, and I'd like my good friend Joe
Yeah.
to kind of take us through a quick recap.
It was so much fun having y'all with us today. We did cover a lot of material and we gave you a lot of basic information. We talked about planning options for refacing and updating your cabinets, painting, right? How great that can make your entire kitchen look. We talked about cabinet door styles. We talked about options for some of this cabinet hardware, like the different types of handles or hinges or drawer slides or pulls. Ron gave us great information about cabinet organization and then under cabinet lighting. All these things that we've given you, hopefully, this is this is something you consider great information, and it will help you truly take your kitchen to the next level. Because Ron, the most important thing about all the stuff we talked about today, you can do this.
Absolutely. And we hope that you've got some understanding, some confidence, and some inspiration
Mhm.
from today's workshop. So last but not least, one thing left for us to do is
Yeah.
simply say thank you.
Thank
Let's not forget the resource guide that's out there. And
Yeah.
by the way, take that survey because we're interested to know what you think. And I need for you to tell us what that next workshop would be.
We're ready.
So
We're ready.
from Joe and me, Thanks, everybody, and have a great one.
Take care.